Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. In this episode, 3 things you are going to learn. Number 1, what a futurist is. Number 2, what the future of work looks like. And number 3 are a few tips on building a career you love. Elatia Abate is our guest today, and she is a globally recognized expert on the futures of work and strategy. She's a keynote speaker who has spoken for some of the most recognizable companies like Verizon, Citi, Deloitte, and many, many more. She's worked with my favorite Trevor Noah and, of course, Tony Robbins. She's a former HR VP and has been featured in Esquire, Forbes, Fast Company, and way too many more to list. She's an instructor for LinkedIn Learning. So kids, let's go to school. Elatia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here.
Oh, it's a treat to have you. So I start every episode the same way, and I ask to please share your story. So would you kindly share your story for the audience?
Oh my gosh, so many stories in one story. I am originally from Michigan, from Detroit, the Motor City, which has largely shaped who I've become and how I do the work that I do today. I've had the opportunity in my career to do everything from run nonprofits to run global recruiting for global organizations like Anheuser-Busch InBev and Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal. And just about 10 years ago, I began an entrepreneurial journey, initially to help solve for the challenge that most of the planet finds themselves unhappy at work. And then had a serendipitous encounter with a futurist, and that completely shifted the trajectory of my career into this space of future of work, future of strategy, and future of leadership.
Okay, so perfect segue. Tell us, what is a futurist?
Yes, so futurist in some ways can feel like the job title manager, right? It could mean so many different things to so many different people. What it is not is sitting over a crystal ball divining what the future is going to be.
Yeah.
What it is, and there are many, many different kinds of futurists, from economists to foresight strategists to marketers to sort of cool trends spotter people who sort of navigate the world to look at what's up and coming. But basically, futurists help people think in a more strategic, more structured, and more empowered way about the future and what it could possibly bring, so we can build solutions today to create that better future. Inside of that, there are 2 main camps, right? The first kind of folks are people who push toward the future from the past, take what we already know, what we've already done, and begin to create a future, which is great. And though there's another component of futurists who sort of goes out to the edge of disruption and pulls future into the present. And I fall very strongly into that second camp. And I view it as my job to understand the big dynamics and the disruptions and the changes that are happening and transform those into strategies and tools and frameworks that we can all use to create results today.
Oh, I love all of that. And I would think that would expose you to so many incredible things. And your mind must be swimming. I don't know how you sleep at night, because I'd be like, oh, I just saw something incredible. So tell us, what is on the horizon? I mean, obviously, we're like knee deep in AI right now, and everybody is exposed to ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and all of the things. But what are you seeing on the landscape out ahead?
Yeah, so I think in part and parcel, when we look at like what is AI and what is its impact currently as it exists, and then what's coming down the road with it. So first and foremost, I think it's the most important conversation to be having, and to really understand that not only is it here to stay as a technology, but this is what economists would refer to as a general purpose technology that radically transforms jobs. It radically transforms the competitive business landscape, and will radically transform underlying kind of societal structures of what we understand as economy and competition and education and so many other things. And so the message that I would leave with folks around AI is really, now is the time to start diving into, if you haven't yet,
Yeah.
Practice, start to use it, understand that it's going to be here, and get yourself familiar, right? So much fear can come up around it.
Oh, yeah.
And because what do we read in the headlines? AI is
Well,
going to eat my job for lunch.
yeah, we just talked about AI on last week's episode with my friends, the Laurens, and it was really understanding the democratization of what AI is and how people can use it and how it's really at our fingertips. And you shouldn't be afraid of it. You should understand that it accentuates the humanity. It's not replacing the humanity. And I love your take on that.
Yeah, I view it as a human empowerment accelerator.
Yeah.
And also, leaning into the language that economists would use, traditionally, they would say that jobs are either enabled or replaced by these kinds of big scale technologies. So other examples for people to have a sense of what this means are like internet, the assembly line, electricity. So these kinds of things that dramatically shift how our world works. However, that solely binary, like either we're great or we're toast. That's how it feels when I hear those kinds of things. But where we really want to focus or really understand is that there's actually a spectrum. I call it a reach spectrum. Yeah. And this spectrum starts us at one end with, yes, some jobs will be replaced. This is true. But then we look at jobs that will be enabled, like the cardiovascular surgeon who knows now how to tell exactly the kind of plaque that you have in your arteries so that you know if you actually need to have a surgery or not.
Right.
Jobs will be augmented. So these are, marketing. Hello, you get to solve the problem of the blank page. It's wonderful. You don't have to spend so many hours trying to generate those initial ideas. Jobs that will be created. 2 years ago in 2022 on the Glassdoor website, there were only 19 chief AI officer jobs that were sort of in that pool of people. Today, there are more than 400. And that's just one job title. That's not everything else that's being created. And then finally, this notion of human empowerment accelerator. What happens when we don't need to do as many of the mundane tasks anymore and our creativity gets to be unleashed and we get to live into our purpose? What happens when AI combines with advances in robotics and people don't need to do people doing enormously physically dangerous jobs won't need to do them anymore? So that's what I mean when I say human empowerment accelerator. So of that spectrum, you'll notice reach, right? Replace, enable, augment, create, and human empowerment accelerator. 4 of the 5 are in support of who we are as human beings and helping us flourish.
I love that. So on this show, we talk a lot about leadership and culture, and I know you talk about this a lot. So talk to me about leadership and what's on the horizon for leaders. I mean, I am a very heart-centered leader. This is what I talk about the most. So what are you seeing?
So leadership is one of those spaces that's asking for big solutions right now.
Yeah.
Because what we read in Harvard Business Review and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, we see a lot of research and articles about upskilling and reskilling. And to your point, how to learn how to utilize the technology itself as it currently exists. But what we're not hearing is what is the upgrade in leadership that's needed to really pilot the emergence of this new world that we're living in. Because the AI landscape is very different from the assembly line logic that we all learned our leadership in and from.
This is music to my ears. This is what I talk about all the time. And this is the reason I built my company. This is why leaders don't have enough examples of what good leadership looks and feels like. And just like you said, we came out of that manufacturing era where it was do your job, go home, work your shift, don't ask questions, be gone. And people don't want that anymore. Not that we're really doing that anymore, but there is still a concept of leaders believing that fear is the way to motivate people, or, I have a title, therefore you shall respect me. And that is tired. Nobody wants it anymore. You've got to earn that respect. So when you're talking to these big companies, are they having these conversations?
That's why they bring me in. Because the sense is, especially at the extremely, when you're talking about a company that has a multi-billion dollar, $1 trillion market cap, these are people who are extremely intelligent.
Right.
very plugged in. So when we talk about leadership, not yet having access to these tools, it's not because there's a lack of capability or desire or any of those things. So it's not, there's nothing wrong with the picture as such.
Mm-hmm.
What there is though, and I don't know if you feel this, I certainly, even that I deal in disruption, this is the feeling sometimes of, but I don't even know what to do with all of this. Right? You're telling me threat and insecurity and big things are changing and all the, okay, great.
Where do I start? Yeah.
I do, how do I start? And this is where we shift away from being driven by expertise and learning to pilot the emergence.
Yeah.
And in doing this, what we do is we move business beyond the brain. Full stop. Leadership becomes a fully embodied, connected experience. And
love that you said
that's
that.
why I love that.
I love that you said that. And, this is something I talk about a lot. We are 360-degree humans, and you are no longer just your job. People crave that vulnerability. They crave that connection. They want to know they are working for someone who believes in them, who has a soul, who has a life. And, I was coaching a CEO recently, and she told me that her VP of sales was going out to have a baby. And I said, good. Is he taking time off? And she said, only a week. And I said, you as the CEO better make him take time off, because that is the example everybody is seeing. And that is not a reasonable example for anyone. So if he wants to do that, that's stupid, but good for him. But you have to be the leader you wish you had. And I think a lot of leaders get stuck on this. They don't know where to start. There's so many things coming at them, and it's modeling behavior that is so, so important. So I love that you're doing this.
Yeah, and it's this idea of moving business beyond a solely intellectual exercise, right? So if we look at like the first and second industrial revolutions, right? The assembly line and the cotton gin, and for that time, things moved quickly and those technologies moved things quickly. But compared to how quickly we're moving today, it doesn't even come close. So the speed of change has shifted from incremental to exponential to basically instantaneous. And so this need to move business beyond the brain comes because our brains developed linearly and locally. So they process in much more easily process in this incremental fashion. We cannot consciously process the quantity of information that we receive even before AI and all this other stuff, right? We just consciously process a tiny fraction. So learning to step into your whole being, understanding that your heart is feeding more information to your brain than your brain is feeding to your heart, learning how to connect those two things and become and create the space to be what I call the ever-evolving eye of the storm. So all of this out here can be crazy, chaotic, storm, but we are centered.
Yeah.
We are powered. We are empowered. And that then, because of a whole series of reasons, but that then helps our teams to begin to adapt and adopt that and to drive into kind of leadership that will help us thrive.
Elatia, I love that you said that. And to me, what comes up is this is a real balance or harmony of masculine and feminine energy. This is a real moment for us to recognize the value in leading with heart, in seeing greatness in people and giving them an opportunity to shine, and leveraging recognition and delegating is a really important power skill that a lot of people think it's just getting things off your plate. It's not. It's giving people an opportunity to do something that they've never done and letting them shine. And oh, by the way, if they screw up, you're there to catch them. You take the blame, not them. And I think leaders miss that all the time. Okay, so shifting a little bit, you talk about building a career you love. I talk a lot about designing a life you love. Give a few tips to the audience on the things that they could do to help them really kind of find their purpose and enjoy what they're doing.
Yes. So fundamentally, it's a strategy shift. To build a career you love. And this is why I left the corporate world. So I ran global recruiting for ABI, for Dow Jones. So I have interviewed thousands of candidates around the world, from the C-suite down to the interns. And here's what happens. Many, many conversations will end with, oh my gosh, Lindsay, you're amazing. You can do this job I have to offer you, but why are you talking to me about this when you're so clearly passionate about something else? And why we land in careers that are unfulfilling is because we employ a strategy that I call the building block strategy. We go to school, we study something, we get ready to graduate, and we ask the question, what can I logically do with what I've already done, what I already know? This is a past anchored strategy.
Yeah.
This is great if from 3 years old, you've always known that you wanted to be whatever it is that you are today, or you don't change or evolve over time. But if you're like I was and didn't really know or understand what you wanted to do, or you've evolved over time, that strategy doesn't work. And so what you want to do is you want to shift over into what I call a future-led strategy, or a moonshot kind of a strategy, where you take a few steps back and you ask yourself, what do I want to create? What kind of impact do I want to have? And how do I want to use my life? And through the answers to those questions, you'll notice that I'm not asking what job at what company and what sector. Paint the picture of what this is and what it looks like. From that, you pull the things that you value the most, and you begin to build a career anchored in those things that you value. And that assures this alignment with job, with purpose, and with the ability to utilize what we do in our workspace to flourish as human beings.
Oh, my heart is bursting because I resonate with this so much. And I reinvented myself at 50. And I basically asked myself, after getting fired from a company, I spent 23 years at IBM. I left IBM, went to another company, got fired in 6 months. And that was such an emotional gut punch. And I asked myself, after a month of crying about it, I asked myself, what am I good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And that's what led me to doing this. And I did what you said. And I think for people to really stop and check themselves and say, am I doing, purpose-driven work? Am I aligned with the work that I'm doing? It's so important. And it's so easy to get lost in a career that is, I don't want to say meaningless, but lacking meaning, maybe. It's
Yeah.
so it's so much more fulfilling when you're doing what you love.
Yeah, it is. And if you think about it, most of us, and the data will tell us this, we spend more than half of our waking hours doing work or work-related activity. And if we are doing something that is less than fulfilling in that space, then we're kidding ourselves if we think that we have a life that's fully flourishing. For the sheer quantity of hours, right? If I'm on a scale of 0 to 10, if half of my awake hours are at a 2 out of 10, there's no way that the things that you say you're just doing the job for the paycheck for are as fulfilled as they could be.
So true.
And so that's the sauce. Like, how do you want to use your life? It's a wonderful resource that each and every one of us has.
Oh, I love that. Okay, here's a fun question. What inspires you?
What inspires me is people who have the courage to ask themselves what they want to create or do, and then go out and try it. I love it. I love seeing people in the mix and putting themselves on the line for something, even if, the rest, it might not be headline worthy for the entire rest of the world. But if someone, even someone who has always wanted to take a piano lesson,
Yes.
and they never have, and they go for it and they discover that they love it or they hate it or whatever, it's awesome that they went for it.
Yeah.
And so if you're swinging for the fences, I find that incredibly inspiring. And I also find it inspiring when people are willing to experiment and fail and say, gosh, I totally tried this out. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I hated it. And that gave me some clues about what else it is that I want to do next. So people who are in the game, I mean,
I love that. And I think when you find out it's something you didn't want or something you don't want to do, that's just as important, because you could be pursuing a dream for the wrong reasons. And when you dip your toe in that pool and you're like, "Woo, too cold for me." And, that recognition, that understanding really helps you kind of direct your energy in the right way. So just as important.
Exactly.
What would you like your legacy to be?
I would like my legacy to be that the people with whom I've had the opportunity to interact, I would love if they get at least one nugget of something, some information, something that they take to help their lives evolve, help them be better versions of themselves. If I've done that, so I had a professor in business school who was one of the dearest people on the planet. He's now officially retired. He's in his mid-80s. And he taught this wonderful class called Business Policy. And while it's sort of about management and management style and all this stuff, what it really was for those of us who were in the class was like, okay, last stop before you graduate to decide what kind of a human being you want to be. And it's a challenging class, particularly for where I went to business school, which is very quantitatively driven. And so one day I was having a conversation with him and he said, Elatia, sometimes I wonder if I should even teach this class because it just sometimes doesn't seem to fit. And I don't know if I'm actually making a difference. And his class gave me the courage. I'm going to cry about this. His class gave me the courage to take and make the career choices that I've made post business school and to be on this whole journey as a futurist. And so I said to him, if you have the chance to help one, like you have an obligation to be at the front because you have a gift and someone needs to hear it. So if I come even a sliver close to something like that, the whole thing is worth it.
Well, congratulations, you're doing it. So you're doing it now. So, that got me in all the feels. So what's next for Elatia?
What's next? I'm so excited. Well, what's next is teaching the world how to pilot this emergence that we're living in and through, and really helping people revolutionize their leadership, completely evolve it for the age of AI. And tactically on the ground, what that looks like is this fall, I'll be back at Stanford continuing studies, teaching what I call future-led leadership so that people can have their hands on that. And then I will be on stages and in virtual classrooms around the world, helping people learn the tools and skills that they need in order to thrive in this new age and time.
Well, thank you for doing that. This is something I hold dear. This is why I wanted you on the show. Thank you for putting all this goodness out into the world. How can people find you?
People can find me on my website, which I believe is in the show notes here, elatiaabate.com. And the place where I play on social is mostly on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So if you're curious, follow me there, connect with me there, send me a note, ask me questions. I love to be in this leadership dialogue. And like I said, these connections can help people get just a little bit closer to that sense of freedom and empowerment is worth all of it.
Well, you have been a marvelous guest. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with the audience. And guys, please go connect with Elatia. She has so much knowledge to share. I love this topic so much, and I try and bring you the best of the best. She is one of them. So connect with her. And guys, if you liked what you heard, tell your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go leave a 5-star review at Apple or Spotify. I am forever grateful for you listening to this show. I hope it helps you. Take care of each other. Have a great day. Lead with heart. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.